Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of the Six Sisters Adjectives and Anecdotes. And this week we're going to go, I hope you enjoyed episode one about their parents. And this is episode two, the brothers. And we welcome, first of all, let's welcome Jane. Give Jane a big round of applause for coming along.
Hey, thank you.
Who was married to Martin between when, Jane? Can you remember that?
82
to 2000.
2000.
Yeah. So we're going to go through adjectives and anecdotes just to briefly explain if you didn't watch episode one. Although it's called adjectives and anecdotes, it's a bit like herding cats with these six sisters. They don't use adjectives and they don't always use anecdotes either. But I think you get the general idea. It's a word and a story or poem about about the person. So we're going to start off with Martin. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jane, but he was born in 1949.
Yeah,
On the 3rd of October.
that's it.
And died the 21st of August 2000.
That's it, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start off with Bernadette. Let's go straight into it. Bernadette, what's your adjective and what's your anecdote?
Well, I could think of so many, and I could think of so many anecdotes. But I thought, as an older brother, he really helped me get on in the world by hardening me up. I remember one time on the tennis court, we played together, and he said to me, if you're going to stand on this court, do something. And that just summed him up. It's kind of been good for me because it takes a lot for people to upset me now. And I think it's something to do with Martin.
That's the biggest backhanded compliment I've ever heard in my life. Okay, Bonnie, let's go over to you. What have you got? You're out.
Martin's complicated.
Complicated.
And I've got a poem. I thought about the things he did. I wondered why they called him Skid. He'd crack a joke, then laugh out loud, the life and soul of any crowd. He'd say his piece without a care. His eyes would dart from here to there. He always had a view on life, and I felt sorry for his wife.
Very good.
Right then.
Now, just a minute, why did they call him Skid?
Football tackling, I think.
Just cleared that up. I was a bit curious.
Yeah,
Sliding tackle specialist, was he? Must have been.
apparently. My brother told me.
Over to you then, Dee.
Over to me. Well, I have the word argumentative in my head.
Okay.
And I can remember he was extremely popular. We don't know why. And he was very clever at school and a great athlete, really strong athlete. But I remember going into a pub one day and he was sat at a table surrounded by loads of people, and he was holding court because he was the jester of the group. He always sort of led the whole thing. And he looked at me and said, "Oh, good, it's Dee. We can have a good argument now." That was it, because I used to argue with him.
Okay then, Joanna.
Well, I've been thinking all week. I've been trying to think of something nice to say about him. But I do remember, one anecdote I've got, I remember that.
You got a word first, ma'am?
Oh, the word, coercive, I would say. Because I remember once, I must have been about 14. Now, of course, we girls were not allowed out after tea anywhere. That was it. Once tea was over, the girls were not allowed out. The boys were, but not the girls. Anyway, I told Mum, and there was a fair along at Lark Hall, and I told Mum that I was babysitting with my friend Rosanna. We were babysitting for somebody, and she believed me, of course, and because I wanted to go to the fair. So, of course, I went along to the fair, and Martin was there When Martin saw me, he knew that I wasn't supposed to be there. So he blackmailed me and I had to give him threepence. I think I had to give him more than, you know. He said he'd tell if I didn't give him some it was. I can't remember exactly how much. But that's all I had. That was it, you know. And so I did. I gave it to him. And but I do remember as well, he ran away from home a couple of times. I don't know if anybody else can remember that. He didn't get very far. He only got to the bottom path, but he did run away from home a couple of times. But it also, of course, when we used to play games, if we played chess or drafts, if he started to lose, up went the whole thing, up in the air, he'd walk out. He was a terrible, terrible loser. That's it, really. It's not very, you know, I can't think of anything really. But I must admit, as he got older, like Deirdre was saying, that a couple of drinks, he was a bit like Dad there, a couple of drinks, and he was everybody's best friend. You know, that's what he needed. He was shy, actually, very shy, I think. And he needed those couple of beers or whatever, and then he was everybody, you know, he was like the soul of the party.
Not anybody I know.
Addy, over to you. Have you got an adjective or a word and an anecdote?
She's gone to sleep.
Oh, are you talking to me, Sean?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Actually, I've been looking through some stuff, and I found a letter he wrote to me when he was a very small little boy. But maybe I should keep that till later.
Have you got a single word?
Pardon?
Have you got a word, an adjective or a word to describe Martin?
I think he had very deep feelings about things. I think he often would ask me things that were quite complicated. I remember when I was going to work in London for the LCC, I was about 19 or 20, I think. And he said, before you go, I want you to answer me a question. He said, are you going because you just want to go away and leave us, or are you going because you really care about those children? So I said, well, those children haven't got any mothers and fathers to look after them. So he was happy about that. He said, oh, that's okay then. I just remember that conversation we had.
Oh, right.
So I think he was very, very deep feelings about things.
Yeah, I got deep down. That's good.
Yeah.
And then over to Mary.
Well, it's funny that Joe said, I was thinking of shy, that was the word, but I didn't know Martin that well because there's quite a big gap between us as a child. But I certainly, the other thing I would say was funny because he was very, you know, he had a very good sense of humour. And I really got on well with him, you know, when he got older. I think we had a lot in common, and we liked books and he liked music. And yeah, he gave me a present on my birthday, which I never had done before. When I came back from Germany, we were playing tennis, and he produced this CD of the music from Morse, which I always liked.
He loved that, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was really nice that he did that. So yeah, that's, you know, I think I really got on well with him when he got older, but I really didn't have much to. I always thought him as very shy when he was younger, but he also had a terrible temper.
Go on then, Jade.
Well, there's so much, isn't there? There's so many adjectives. So I was going to say funny, cantankerous. Going back to the tennis thing, Bernadette, I remember on the tennis court, if we were playing together, and he'd miss the ball and say, yours to me.
That's right.
That's right.
I thought, he's so rotten, but now Alex does that as well, so there's a husband thing. But just another funny thing I remember, Mum used to bring over food sometimes, casseroles, when we lived opposite her. And I think Martin and Mum had fallen out, and she knocked on the door and he answered the door, and she just walked straight past him and brought the casserole into me and turned around and walked out again, and Martin was just hysterical, saying she just walked straight past me. But he thought that was really funny, but I don't know what happened.
Oh, brilliant.
Bit.
So the words I've got here, the words we've got down here are funny, shy, deep, coercive, argumentative, complicated, and hardened. And I cannot believe we've not got competitive in there. I know a couple of you might have used the word competitive, but that's the way that I remember Martin was very competitive, because I used to play badminton with him down at in Bath.
Oh, he was really, really competitive. We all played badminton, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes,
Remember we played at the
St
St Mary's Church Hall. Yeah.
He had an infectious laugh as well, didn't he? He was always very funny, and he laughed at his own jokes a lot, didn't he? He struggled to get the joke out before he burst out laughing.
I love talking music with Martin.
Yeah,
We had a great thing about the music.
Yeah,
Well,
you did.
I remember that video they did when we were living at Oakley House, and we had that big party, and there were all these things going on. And him and Bruce was the cameraman, and Martin was the commentator.
Oh, I remember, yeah.
The Irish, there was Paddy doing Irish dancing, I think, and somebody else, and you two were doing so, and it was the Biafran War, and the Irish Republic, the bombers were going on. It was in the 80s. It was absolutely hysterical. I don't know.
Have you got a copy of that?
I don't know, but it's so.
I would never copy of that.
He was dead serious, just like a war commentator. Yeah. And here we are in this room now, and we've got to look at all this food being left. This could be the whole of Biafra, all the salt and lava.
I remember that.
Yeah, but I don't know if you've still got a copy, Mary. You might have somewhere.
I don't know. I'll have to get Mark to look through it. There's no way I can find it.
I would never copy of that.
Yeah, it would be nice, because we're all on there.
I'm going to sell it off at an auction then, obviously, to make some money so I can go away.
Well, if you let me have a copy, I won't put the copy I've got of you. Dancing naked in the woods.
Oh, right. I should be so lucky.
So that brings me on, actually, that neatly ties over as a bit of a link, because Martin was really fond of music, wasn't he, as well?
Yeah.
And that brings me on to his brother as well, because I think they were both into, for a period of time, Irish rebel music as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got my father into Irish rebel music, I think, and subsequently me as well.
That came from Dad originally.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's crazy emotional music, and I think like you're saying, what you're saying is right about Martin. He's kind of deep down quite emotional, I think, and that kind of Irish rebel music is very kind of emotive, isn't it?
Yeah.
People listen to it, I'm sure you have. So that brings us on to Jimmy, who was born in 1941, 8th of January, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Elvis Presley's birthday.
Is that right? Well, same day?
Oh, I don't know about the same day.
And then died on the 25th of August 2004. So we're going to start with Bernadette again. Have you got an adjective and an anecdote about your brother Jimmy? You must have been quite old when you must have been quite old when you were born.
He was 14, I think.
Right.
Well, when I was thinking about doing this, I kept coming up with the same ones for both of them, because they both had a presence. They'd walk into a room anywhere and they'd kind of take over, and they were both hilarious, really funny, and quite philosophical, both of them. You could have really good conversations.
That was the word I was going to use.
Well, I was trying to think of something, but they were so similar. But Jimmy, I think, was I don't know. I think he was like Martin in that argumentative thing. And I remember I could never watch a really soppy film because he'd ruin it. He'd come in and he'd say something about, the cameraman behind there saying, come on, he'd just ruin everything. And I don't know, he just had this way with him, but everything he did was funny. I could never take him seriously. And he had the last laugh when he told me to choose this book for book club when he was dying. And they've never forgiven me for it because it was awful.
What was the book called?
Mort.
Oh, yes. Yes. dreadful.
Well, he did have the last laugh in as much as he had the laugh in Policeman played at his funeral, which was just like crazy. No one believes me when I tell them. Should we go over to Bonnie then?
Okay.
What word have you got, Bon?
I've got contented.
Contented.
Yeah.
And again, I've got a poem because I couldn't think of anything.
Go on.
And I put, he never cared what people thought, what car you drove or what you bought, how large your house, how big your pay, so long as at the end of day, a pint of homemade wine or beer, a plate of food, a song to hear. He was a man of simple pleasure, each piece of time a thing to treasure.
Brilliant. That's awesome.
Good.
And that reminded me about the homemade wine. He used to make loads of that,
Yeah.
didn't he? I forgot about that. Oops, someone's on. Deirdre, over about Jimmy. A word in a. You got a word for Jimmy?
Have I got a word for Jimmy? I think loving. That's a good word, isn't it? Because
is.
he was a very loving person, had great empathy with lots of people, felt as though he had to help everybody. There was a lot of things he did in his life, I think, that, you know, you don't realize that what a good person he was. I was very close to him. We had a great relationship because he used to write funny poems, and so did I. We used to write to each other. We used to try and outdo each other. And we did a play together with Peter, Phil and I. It was very close to Phil, actually. Phil and me and Peter and Jimmy and Chris. And I think we used to disturb the neighbours more than anything because we would laugh so much. It was just, he was just a fun person to be with. And it was such a terrible thing, really. I really missed him afterwards, yeah, when he went. Yeah, so I think loving is a good one for Jimmy.
Excellent, thank you, Dee. What about you, Joanna?
Well, I've got an anecdote, and I'm going to say easy going.
Yeah.
Easy. That was Jimmy. But I do remember when he was, I think he must have been about 17 or 18. He was 6 years older than me. And I remember he came in one morning. I can remember exactly where I was stood between the scullery or the outhouse and the kitchen. And Mum was there, and he walked in the morning, and he'd been out all night. Now Mum was 5'5.5", and he was over 6 foot, just over 6 foot, I think. And he came in and she said, "Where do you think you've been all night? Where have you been?" And he sort of just shrugged his shoulders and sort of grinned. And she went out, she picked up a boiler stick. Now we had an old-fashioned gas boiler, and she used to use this stick. It was about that round, it was quite thick and about that long. And she used to use it for getting the washing out of the boiler into the sink. And she went round and got this boiler stick. She'd used it more than once. And she was up in the air hitting him because, of course, he was so short. And she was hitting him like that, and he was just stood there. He didn't sort of stop her or anything. He was trying to dodge the blows. And then all of a sudden, and me was terrified. I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen here? And all of a sudden, it snapped in half because it was so rotten, I think. And they both fell about laughing. I was so relieved. They were both absolutely doubled up. Mum and Jimmy, I can remember that so well because this thing broke in half. But I mean, there were lots of things. I mean, I remember David and I used to go over to Jimmy and Chris's. We used to go down to the British Legion Club, and you know, they always had live music there, and we always had a big breakfast next morning. Chris would cook this big breakfast. But yeah, Jimmy was just always laid back, easy going. He did his own thing. He didn't really sort of get involved too much with us, but as he got older. And of course, he kept more to himself when he married Chris as well. But, you know, obviously he had the 2 boys. But, no, yeah, he liked his simple pleasures, I would say, definitely. And, of course, he was very funny. He had a wonderful sense of humour. Like Deirdre, they could really write some wonderful, wrote plays, all sorts, pantomimes, everything, you know. So, he was clever. Deep down, he was quite clever. But it never really showed. That's it for me.
Brilliant. And then over to Paddy.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, because I came in a different position in the family of being older than him, but I would agree with Bernadette. I would say he was philosophical in a way, you know, he thought deeply about things. But as a little boy, he was very shy and he didn't like being photographed. And I remember going to school. I used to have to look after him. I was always worried that he was because someone was going to hurt him. I do remember that because I think he was quite a shy little boy. I remember Auntie Bet had to pay him to take his photograph. He didn't want to have his photograph taken, so she said if she'd give him some money if he'd let her take his photograph. He spent a lot of his childhood with his Gran's house with the cousins John and Michael. He spent a lot of time there with them. I remember once him and I went singing in the village to raise for money. We went round these houses singing, and they gave us money. And when Mum heard about it, she was furious, and she said we had to take all the money back. But we didn't really want to go and take it back to the houses, so we buried it in the bank because I don't know whether it's him or me had noticed on the buses it said, if you put your money in the bank, it will grow. So, but I went back a lot later to see if I could find the money, but I never found it. So whether he got it first, I don't know. But he was very kind, and but I remember when we were small, we used to do these plays, and sometimes, you know, it was quite serious, these plays Mary and him and I would put on. And sometimes he would suddenly just refuse and said, I'm not playing anymore, because he didn't, especially if it was somewhere where he was going to be killed or something in the play. He used to take it quite seriously. So I remember him just deciding that was it, he wasn't going to join in anymore. Yeah, so I wouldn't, you know, because they were living in Keynsham, and he'd often come round on his own just to visit me, just come and have a chat. So it was like a regular thing. And I know before he died, he brought me a rocking chair so that I could rock the grandchildren in it. So, yeah, I've got very lovely memories of him.
Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. So let's go to Mary then.
I think he was very similar to Martin in that he was very shy when he was young, and but I think he had a hard time because it was just Paddy and I and Jimmy and Mum, and he lived, you know, I don't know whether I've mentioned it before, but we have 2 bedrooms and a box room, and the box room had no window, so he slept in the box room. And you've got to remember that at the cottage where we lived, we only had gas mantles. Do you know what a gas mantle is?
Yeah, so that's gas lighting, yeah?
Yeah, gas lighting. So you lit this mantle, but you turned it off. You didn't leave it on. So when we went to bed, it was dark. You know, we didn't have any light. So he would be completely black because there'd be no window. And of course, he used to wet the bed. And that went on for years, and Mum would cope with it quite well. But of course, when Dad came back, it was a different story. So there would be, you know, he was very unhappy about what Martin and what Jimmy did. So, but I think he had a hard time really as a young lad. But he was, he had a tremendous sense of humour. And I just remember when Paddy was talking about those plays, and it was always me in charge of the plays and always choosing what we did. And I do remember the Rapunzel one. I was a beautiful person in the tower, obviously. And my hair was hanging down. And Jimmy had to be the prince that was coming along. And Paddy, I think, was probably the witch. But then she never was a very good witch. So I had to be the witch as well. So it would be, the whole thing would be descending into chaos. But I did get on really well with Jimmy, as I did with Martin, because... you know, they loved words. And Jimmy, he had very strong views about things, and he had no time for religion at all. He really was an agnostic, and he didn't have any time for the monarchy. So he was very against those things, but he had tremendous sense of words, and he used to write wonderful poems, which I've still got some of them. And yeah, so we had a lot in common because we like words, we like books, we like music. So yeah, we.
Have you got the poem to hand? Have you got a Jimmy poem?
No, I haven't. I thought afterwards I should have tried to find some, but yeah.
He liked reading Omar Khayyam as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I've got the Omar Khayyam. Yeah, somebody gave it to me. One of my boyfriend gave me years ago, so I've still got that.
But I think actually for both our brothers, they had a hard time because there were 2 of them and there were 6 of us.
Yeah.
Outnumbered. We're telling you the story from our point of view. They would probably say something completely different if they were
Yeah.
You bet they would.
And I think that, yeah, I think overall, I think Martin probably had a hard time from Deirdre and I. We didn't think he did, but he probably did. And I think, yeah, it's you know, they were outnumbered. And of course, I got to admit that Dad was never there for them. Dad thought the world of all us girls. He didn't want to know the boys. He wasn't interested in the boys at all. I think he felt they were they let him down. I don't know why.
How old was Jimmy?
He wasn't able to relate to the boys.
How old was Jimmy when he first met his dad?
It would
He
be
was about 5.
5.
About 5.
Probably fairly traumatic, hasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Well, but the thing was, when Mum came upstairs to tell us Dad was there, do you remember, Paddy?
Yeah.
And you and Jimmy rushed downstairs and climbed all over this strange man that was standing there. And I went downstairs and said, he's not my dad. Didn't like the look of him at all.
And didn't he have to go away shortly afterwards anyway?
Yeah, he had to go. He went up to somewhere to be demobbed, and then he got crushed by a lorry against a wall. And so he was in hospital for a long time, I think, months. Wasn't it, Paddy?
Yeah, it was in Chester. He had to go out and get his demob papers or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I watched on Who Do You Think You Are, and he might have got crushed by the lorry up there, but there was they also actually all prisoners of war, and he was in for a long time, much longer than the one I watched. They actually put them into certain sort of like a convalescent home to bring them back to normal, where they've been prisoners of war for so long, they've been away from normal civilization, and they actually put them in to be rehabilitated. And that probably happened to him. You wouldn't have been told that. You wouldn't have known that. You just thought he was in hospital because he was injured.
No, he was in hospital because I remember going with Mum on the train to see him.
Oh, I don't doubt that, but the fact he was there for months.
But I find it very hard, Joe. I find it very hard to think that every man that was a prisoner of war was rehabilitated when he came back. It wouldn't have happened. They didn't have the money for that.
Well, they didn't. No.
He had pleurisy, Mum said.
That's right. Yeah, he did, and that was because presumably he got crushed and his lungs would have been affected. Yeah.
Right, so let's go on to Jane then, as a sister-in-law. Have you got an adjective and an anecdote about Jimmy?
Well, I just
Martin's
think,
point of view maybe as well.
yeah, I just think he's funny and very kind. I know when Martin and I were together and we had Nicola, and they very often used to invite us over for a meal in Keynsham when they took over the care home. So kind. And I just remember how funny he was. When he did his accents, he'd all of a sudden become a Geordie. He could do, I think he could do any accent. It was just so funny.
Yeah, Mary's like that too. She could.
I do have a 2-line end to my poems.
Okay.
Go on.
Can I just say it quickly?
Yeah.
I miss these two. They were a great fun. We'll meet again when I am done.
I think it would also be remiss of us not to mention the fantastic host that Chris and Jimmy were every Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
Amazing.
Our children,
say.
so our children, they must have been great aunties and uncles to our children, but it was absolutely the highlight of their Christmas together,
Yeah.
Jimmy and Chris's, and they
Yeah.
were like
It
a
was
close
wasn't it?
relationship, really.
Yeah, we all enjoyed that. It was.
And
Yeah.
they were absolutely
I
amazing. And
never knew how they did it all, to be fair.
I think they must have spent the whole of Christmas Day just clearing up after us.
Yeah.
And they
And then
had
they
a
had-
present for everybody.
And then they had the residents to look after Christmas Day as well. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how Chris did it and Jimmy did it, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
And it really did make Christmas special. And although, you know, we've done some great jobs, some great parties since then, I don't think anything compares to that. Not for
No,
me,
they
anyway,
haven't been
with
the same.
having young
Yeah.
children. It
Yeah,
was
no,
proper magic. And we used to spot Father Christmas in the air on the way home
Yeah.
in the dark on
Right,
Christmas
yeah.
Eve as we go along. Suddenly there'd be a shout in the car and all the kids would be staring out the windows. It was just proper magic. But they're
Do you
both
remember
proper
that-
magic.
Do you
I'll just
remember
go
that
through the
carol?
words that you've come up with, which are a bit strange, because I just read through them, and you'll all agree that they were very similar in a lot of ways, but it doesn't sound like this when you come out with the words. So we got Martin is funny, shy, deep, coercive, argumentative, complicated, hardened, and Jimmy is kind, shy, philosophical, easygoing, loving, contented, and presence. So that's the words we've got for them. But thank you once again for doing episode 2 of Adjectives and Anecdotes. There's one more episode that we need to record, and that'll be, we won't tell you too much about that. Won't give too much away, but it's going to be about some people that are still alive, we think. So, but thank you ever so much, and we will